So what is impetigo? Impetigo is more of a superficial intraepidermal infection. It's not a deep infection. It's just a superficial, but an intraepidermal infection. Okay, it's going to be a very localized infection. So most of the impetigo is caused by gas. This is the most common cause. Number one cause, that is group A streptococcal infection, or people tend to call it as group A beta hemolytic streptococcus, or it can be caused by Staphylococcus aureus. Like for example, MSSA or MRSA, we know that. So what is the most important key feature of impetigo? So anywhere in the world you go, so the most important key feature is going to be that honey yellow colored crust. So when the lesion, there will be some bulla. Okay, we have bullous and non-bullous impetigo. So bullous impetigo is going to be seen in approximately 10% of the cases where you're going to have something called as a flaccid bulle. That's all right. But remaining 90% of the impetigo cases is going to be non-bullous impetigo only. So most common form is non-bullous impetigo. How you're going to find out? You're going to have this classic honey yellow crust, which I'm going to show in some time. And the most common location is going to be either in the face or it's going to be in the extremities. In the trunk, it's very, very rare. So usually it's going to be in the limbs, extremities, or probably in the face. So what are the risk factors? Of course, trauma is a risk factor, recent viral infection is a risk factor, and children by default. So most of the time, if it's impetigo in exams, they will give history of a child, a 5-year-old child or 4-year-old child. So children are particularly prone for impetigo because it's gas infection. Gas infection tend to spread in the form of epidemics. It can easily spread to others. That's why school-going children are at very high risk of developing streptococcal infections, including streptococcal sore throat as well as impetigo, because it keeps spreading quite easily. And hot and humid climate is also going to be a risk factor. And poor hygiene is also a risk factor for impetigo. So how will you diagnose? Clinical diagnosis again. So you see that honey yellow colored crust plus or minus bulla, you think about impetigo. And of course, culture sometimes can tell you the diagnosis, but it's not required and it's rarely positive. So it's better to go for clinical diagnosis itself. So for most cases, topical mupirocin is enough because it's going to be mild only. In case if you're thinking in terms of a severe infection, that is a time where you need antibiotics. So even in case of extensive disease, oral antibiotics are going to be more than enough, because impetigo patients are never going to come with severe sepsis or septic shock, because anyway it's a localized skin infection. There is no need for intravenous antibiotics. It's better to go for oral itself, even for extensive disease. So for mild disease, again, oral is not even required. You can just go for topical mupirocin. So if it's an extensive disease, so again, depending on whether you're thinking in terms of MSSA or MRSA, you can use either augmentin or cephalexin if it's MSSA, or if you're thinking in terms of MRSA, it's going to be cotrimoxazole, doxycycline, or clindamycin. But again, instead of clindamycin, my personal choice is going to be linezolid because it's much more safer compared to clindamycin. I'll show the images in some time. So what about folliculitis? Folliculitis is nothing but a hair follicle infection. We all know that. So again, the usual culprit here is going to be Staph aureus. Like I said in the previous slide, your erysipelas is gas, whereas your cellulitis is Staph aureus. Likewise, your impetigo is going to be gas, but folliculitis is going to be due to Staph aureus infection. But we have some special forms of folliculitis, like we have hot tub folliculitis, which is caused by Pseudomonas aeruginosa. This is basically because of poorly maintained saunas and hot tubs in certain hotels, where patient, if they take steam or sauna in that area, so it can result in small pustular appearances, that is hot tub folliculitis, so caused by Pseudomonas aeruginosa, because Pseudomonas aeruginosa loves water. That's why I'm specifically saying this steam areas and saunas, where Pseudomonas aeruginosa can grow exponentially because it's water-loving organism. So that's why you have that. And the name is called hot tub folliculitis. Sometimes fungus like Malassezia furfur in Canada also can produce folliculitis, even though it's not very common. So the key point is the pustules that you're going to see. It's very easy to pick up. So you're going to have the pustules. It can be small or big, but it's going to be around the hair follicles. That's classic. And it's going to be commonly seen in the scalp. I think every one of you would have got some folliculitis in the scalp where it have broken it. You have got, I have got, everyone have got. And in the trunk is also very common. We know that. And in the buttocks, again, a very common site, especially near the S2, S3 region, very, very common. So this can turn into furuncles. We'll be discussing about that in the next slide. So what are the risk factors? Shaving is such a strong risk factor. Sometimes shaving related folliculitis can be sterile, trust me. So superficially, you will see after shaving. Every one of you know that you can get folliculitis. And hyperhidrosis is a risk factor. Too much of sweating. Some patients will be having hyperhidrosis, and that's going to be a risk factor. And nasal carriage of MRSA or MSSA. So nasal carriage of Staph aureus is going to be a risk factor because you're going to do something in the nose and maybe nose picking, and you just touch somewhere, and that might be the risk factor for developing folliculitis. Now, occlusion in the sense like the pores occlusion. So that is also going to be risk factor, but it's not very important. Again, the diagnosis is totally clinical. Culture is not required. You can take the pus and send, theoretically speaking, but not really required. It's a typical clinical diagnosis. Mild folliculitis, small pustules, just topical mupirocin is going to be enough. But I would say like antibiotics itself is required only if it's a severe or persistent folliculitis. Otherwise, antibiotics itself is not required. You can just go with conservative management. So in case if it's severe, these are rare. So if there is severe furunculosis, then you can choose the treatment depending on whether you're having MSS or MRSA suspicion. But if you're thinking in terms of a hot tub folliculitis, there is a clear-cut sauna exposure or steam exposure in some hotel. After that, if they come with folliculitis, you can use ciprofloxacin because none of the beta-lactams except fifth-generation cephalosporin like ceftaroline cover Pseudomonas. So easiest way to treat is using a quinolone like ciprofloxacin or levofloxacin. These are the two quinolones that have pseudomonal cover. So it's better to go for ciprofloxacin or levofloxacin. In case of fungal infection, you can use topical clotrimazole or oral fluconazole, but I would not recommend. I mean, it's easy to treat anyways. I mean, antibiotics itself is not required. So anyways, antibiotics are required only if there is severe or persistent folliculitis. Otherwise, it's not required.